Welcome to Talking Heads of USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. Our show today is Entrepreneur and so much more. I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and I am thrilled to be able to share this stage with a dear friend, someone whom I have so much in common with, and I'm just so grateful to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for introducing us, especially Dawn Halsey. A big shout out to you, Dawn. So let's bring Justin on. He is an accomplished entrepreneur. He is a survivor. He is a hero. He is a father. He is a husband. He is a trainer. And he is here with us to talk about the things that brought us together and also the ways that we can help entrepreneurs be even more successful. And if you're out there starting up a new business, what you need to know. We've got a very special guest joining us today, and we're excited to bring him out as well. Welcome to the program, Justin. Hi.
Hey, Dr. Jacalyn, how are you?
Oh, well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Show number 2. I'm excited.
I am as well. Yes. And I just love the fact that you always have so many great ideas and insights to share with people because you've got a ton of experience. And I love that you shared on our last show that being a business owner doesn't mean the money comes flying through the door right away, right? It's a lot of years of hard work.
Yeah, there's a lot of not going out to eat and not buying gifts and, smaller Christmases, but, eventually get there. So.
Yeah. And I think it's also one of the other things that we talked about this before, just to get this out there right away, is a lot of times as an entrepreneur, people whom you love, people you associate with, they sort of lose faith because they get scared. They get worried. When's the money coming? When's the money coming? When are you going to be home? When's the phone going to stop ringing? And you have to really plan for that as you take on this path to be an entrepreneur, right?
Exactly. There's no doubt about it. And you need somebody. I'm very lucky that my wife was behind me the whole way. She could have easily, had a conversation with me and said, hey, I think we might need to rethink this whole idea. But she didn't. She said, let's stay the course. Let's keep building. And we did. And, on top of that, I don't know if I mentioned it in the last show, but I also started a production company. And we shot a trailer for a movie, a documentary called Keenan's Kids. And it's about the 1984 to 1988 Philadelphia Flyers. And Mike Keenan was the head coach. So that's where the name comes in. And, again, it was something that I really had to research a little bit. It wasn't anything that I had experience with. And again, I was lucky because Amy, my wife, said, look, do it. It's something that you're excited about. It's something that you're passionate about. And right now we have a trailer that we got done, which is pretty cool to be able to watch that. And it's amazing to have your 10-year-old heroes in your house. Former Flyers, Brian Propp, he's a legend here. And Mark Howe, NHL Hall of Famer, Doug Crossman, former Flyer. They were in my house. We had 8 hours of shooting, had dinner together, and talked about old-time hockey. And, right now, I would not call myself a filmmaker, but as an entrepreneur, I'm branching out and trying something else that may or may not make money. I don't know. I mean, it's very, very difficult to tell. And, of course, with the pandemic, trying to get corporate sponsorship to do something like this is very, very difficult. So it's going to have to wait on the back burner a little bit, but it really, I think is part of my makeup as an entrepreneur is wanting to try different things that I might not know a whole lot about right off the bat, but I learn as I'm going. And there are going to be some times where I might try something that just doesn't work at all. And it's happened. There have been plenty of times I tried some ideas that just went nowhere and I abandoned them. But if you have the passion for it, a lot of times, if you can afford to do it, you just go for it. And that's what I did with this film. It was very expensive to shoot just one day, really 8 hours, cost well over $2,000 to do that. So, and it was at a time where we didn't really have a whole lot of extra money in the house. So, that again, the key is that you have somebody behind you that's willing to understand that and take on the risk with you. And I'm lucky to have that.
Well, a big shout out to Amy because she's obviously a smart woman who knows a good thing when she sees it. So, and I'd also like to just say about the Philadelphia Flyers, I was such a huge fan for so many years. I'm still a big fan, but I used to I had to sit cross-legged in a certain position without moving because I didn't want to jinx them when they were going up and down the ice. And I had this handmade Flyers necklace and ring and bracelet, and I literally had to sit there and not move. It was just insane. But
Yeah.
they won, so that was a great thing.
Yeah, really. And I'm 47, so I don't remember the Stanley Cup years, but I do remember the 80s. And part of what the film's about is how it bonded especially the boys and the fathers together. I mean, it was just amazing. I lived in a neighborhood where we really didn't have a whole lot of money, and not everybody had Prism. They couldn't afford Prism. And the people who had Prism on the block would bring everybody inside to watch those home games that the Flyers had. And they were only broadcast on Prism at the time. And some of the viewers might not even remember Prism. It's long gone now from the Philadelphia area. But, again, to think that those guys who I idolized as a kid would be in my house and be a part of this, even if I don't make a cent, it was still worth it to me. Just to have that opportunity.
Yes, that is incredible. And obviously, because you are such a heart-centric person, I found that about you right when we first met. And again, our show is about entrepreneurs and so much more. So I just want to tie it back. You and I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we have some things in common in that we have struggled with illness, disease in our lives, and we've had to pick ourselves up and move forward. I'm a new entrepreneur. You've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but I do want to give a shout out to the Crohn's Colitis Foundation because
Absolutely.
when I got involved with them in 2018, it really changed my life. I was living in shame and just completely humiliated about having ulcerative colitis and running to the bathroom 50 times a day, all those things. But I met you and the foundation. I'm on the board now, and I'm so happy that we've come together and we're doing the show. You've brought an amazing guest who also has a tie to what we're talking about as well. So I'm going to spotlight you, and if you could introduce Rolf, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. In 2015, and make a long story short, keep it very brief. I was diagnosed with high-grade dysplasia after 12 years of ulcerative colitis. And high-grade dysplasia means that you're really on the verge of colon cancer. And the doctor told me that really the only option was to have my entire large intestine removed, rectum, anus, everything had to go. And now I have a permanent ileostomy. And I'm a weightlifter. I'm a hockey player, and I was only 40 years old at the time, and I was looking for some kind of inspiration or some kind of relief that I would be able to still be me afterwards. And when I went to see my surgeon, he said, "Well, did you know that Rolf Benirschke kicked in the NFL for, I think he said 7 years with an ostomy?" And from that moment, I leaned on that. That was such a big deal to me. And my family went up to upstate New Jersey to have my surgery. They were there. We were in a hotel. And that night, as scared as I was, and I was petrified, but I said to everybody that night, not only am I going to meet Rolf Benirschke, he's going to be a friend of mine, and we're going to work together. And it's all come true. And this man is about as good as it gets. And I want to introduce my friend, Rolf Benirschke.
Woohoo! Let's bring him onto the show. Welcome. Hi.
You're so kind. Nice to see you, Jacalyn. And Justin, always good to see you. I remember that call, and I remember speaking to you and how down and discouraged you were, but also learning about your character and what really lies behind you. We have a lot in common besides our disease. I was a hockey player growing up and had a passion for it. I know you're a Flyers fan. I grew up a Bruins fan. but there's a certain trait great hockey players have, and I think that's grit. And it was clear to me that you had grit. And what your surgeon did by kind of sharing my story, I think, was to give you a light that said you can actually get there. How you get there is going to be up to you, but you can get there because there are examples. And I know the value of that, of a light, someone that has walked in your shoes ahead of you, maybe paved the road a little bit, to look over their shoulders and say, hey, come follow me. I had a similar experience. Some don't remember, that was a long time ago when I played, but I played for the Chargers. I was a place kicker with the Chargers for 10 years, from 1977 to 1986, during the Dan Fouts and Don Coryell years. Don Coryell was our coach, and Dan Fouts was our quarterback. Kellen was some legendary players that became All-Pro and Hall of Famers. But I was diagnosed in my second season with Crohn's disease, Jacalyn. Likely misdiagnosed, could have been ulcerative colitis. We really don't know, but sort of unrelenting disease that made me sicker and sicker and sicker. The challenge is in the NFL, you're either the starting kicker or you're unemployed. And I was actually playing in my hometown. Our team was really getting good. I'd had some success my early year, was very excited about what was ahead of me. And then all of a sudden my body started to fail me. But again, as a kicker, you're either the starting kicker or you're unemployed. And I wanted to keep going. So I kept playing, getting sicker and sicker and sicker. The last month of that season, quite literally 1977, I was playing the game on Sunday. Sunday night, they put me in a hospital. They put a central line in my neck. I'd be fed intravenously all week. Saturday, they would pull the line out. Saturday night, I'd go spend the night with the team in the hotel, play the game on Sunday, Sunday night back in the hospital all week. And so for a month, that's kind of how I existed. Short story, that off season. But if you look at my 10-year career, statistically, that was one of the best seasons of my career. I tried to come back and play my third season, and 4 games into it, collapsed actually on the team plane, flying home from a game we just played in New England. And I needed surgery, and there were complications. I needed a second surgery 6 days apart. And I woke up from that surgery 65 pounds below my playing weight, with 2 ostomy bags on my side, in the same hospital. My dad was a practicing physician, septic, and my colleague, my parents, my doctors who were colleagues of my parents, telling my dad, we're not sure Rolf's going to survive the night. And the truth is, I shouldn't have. That was 1979. I was septic. My organs were shutting down. You know, I had a near-death experience. I survived that night, and then the next night, and the next night. Was in the ICU for almost 6 weeks. Got great medical care, released to the care of my parents, and then looked around and go, why did I live? From where I sat with an ostomy bag, 2 ostomy bags, at the age of 24, someone that loves sports of all kind, you know, hockey and tennis and ski racing, and we live here in California, out of the beach. I'm thinking I'll never do that again. I'm making my living as a professional athlete. I'm going, that's over for sure. And I was 24 and I like girls. And I'm thinking, that's kind of over too. Lord, why did you take my life? And he didn't. But the kernel of hope came for me when I got visited by a guy my age. Back then, we were allowed to have visitors. Somebody had sent a visitor from the United Ostomy Association to my room who had an ostomy. And he walked in, are you Rolf? And I go, yeah, who are you? And I was kind of angry. And he goes, I was told to come visit you. Why'd you want to come visit me? And I said, well, I have an ostomy bag, and I understand you do too. And I go, you can't have one. You're wearing tight jeans. And he said, no, I do. You want to see? And I said, yeah. So that was the kernel for me. And then it was having to wrestle with this huge body image change, life image change, and then finding out that he was absolutely right. And like you, Justin, the surgery didn't just allow us to live. It gave us back our life, and probably, well, I'll speak for myself, and I think for you, changed us. We live life very differently as a result of that. We recognize life's not a guaranteed 85 years. We value friends and relationships and family. We're grateful on so many levels. And many of us, I would say most of us, get to this point where we wouldn't trade what happened to us for how it changed us. And I know I've watched you as you have returned from your difficult circumstance to do all the things you do with grit and determination and a desire to give back and serve others. And so it is a privilege to sit here today and reflect on your journey. It's 6 years or something like that now, and all that you're doing. So congrats and thanks for having me on.
It means so much coming from you. And I just remember that that visit with the surgeon, and I remember the first phone call because I had written you a letter and I told you, what you meant to me as a hero and somebody who, you talk about darkness. I mean, and you talk about why did I live? I got to be honest. There were times where I thought maybe this isn't worth it, and I think what helped keep me away from that was having a wife and kids, and you can't bail. You talk about grit. You got to, when you have kids, you just do what you got to do. There's no giving up. But it was dark, and I searched the internet days on end and just didn't find anything. And it took from really June to August for me to find your story. And when that phone rang, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe you were on the other line, that you took the time, to talk to just somebody you didn't even know. And that makes a big difference.
Well, Justin, honestly, that's been the blessing from this whole thing. One of the many blessings is the chance to get to meet other patients and to remember what it was like to be in that dark place going, this sucks. There's just nothing good about this. And there are no magic words you can tell anybody. There's no Bible verse. There's no, this is God's plan. There's none of that. And there's all of that, but there's no magic words. It's sitting there in the muck going, this does suck, but you have 2 kids. You got a wife. You've got a second chance at life. Now let's walk through the process of getting your life back. And sometimes what we do when we're in that dark place is we project way out to where our life was. For you, it was weightlifting and hockey and the things that made your life beyond your family just enjoyable. And you go, I'll never do that stuff.
Right.
And what I've learned from speaking really to hundreds and hundreds of patients that have had ostomy surgery or inflammatory bowel disease is you absolutely can get there. But the journey to get there is made easier if you do a couple of things. One is you start by breaking time down into bite-sized increments. So this actually is a great lesson that I learned from these POWs in Vietnam who ended up 6 years in the prisoner of war camps where they were beaten, tortured every day. They just tried to get to the night. At night they got reprieve. So the question became for them, how do I survive the day? I can't worry about tomorrow, and a week from now is an eternity away. How do I get to tomorrow? And so as I read those books, I go, that's me. All right, I'm going to figure out how to get to tomorrow. So the first encouragement is break time down. The second thing they did that I applied to my life, and I think you did, was to set these small achievable goals. For them, it was, for example, 100 push-ups, 300 sit-ups, and then walk my cell 50 times back and forth. All right, I'm an athlete, you're an athlete. I'm used to doing 3 sets of 10, run 10 hundreds, whatever it is. So for me, it became literally walk to the mailbox and back. And the second day, 2 mailboxes, and then 3 mailboxes, which in California, maybe not that way in Philly. In California, the houses are pretty close. So if you sneeze, 5 houses down, they say, God bless you. So it wasn't a big accomplishment, but it was an accomplishment. And then the third thing they shared, which I think our listeners, if you've gone through any really difficult challenge, would understand, is that we have to learn to accept help from others, which is very hard. If you think of the spectrum of people who probably are bad at accepting help, at the very end would be the military, right? They're taught to be totally self-reliant. And the next one would be athletes who, if you show a weakness of any kind, your competitor is going to pick on it, right? If you can't hit a backhand in tennis, you're going to get fed a lot of backhand. So we're sort of conditioned not to be able to ask for help or accept it because it demonstrates need, weakness, whatever. They learned they needed to accept that. And I knew I did. It was hard at first. Friends would come over and knock on the door. I was with my parents, and my mom would say, Rolf just doesn't feel well. thanks, I'll tell them you stopped by. And most were very courteous and left. But some said, I don't really care. Mrs. Benirschke, I want to see Rolf. I'll get teary-eyed talking about it. They'd walk in and they'd sit with me, or they'd pick me up and they'd put me in the car and we'd drive up the coast and we'd see the beautiful ocean and I would be emotional. And I'll never forget those people. The people that took their time to come to the hospital when they couldn't see me or to barge in. I'll never forget it. And it changed the way I look at friends like you. When you were sick and you reached out, what a blessing to be able to come alongside and say, Justin, I know this absolutely is awful, but here's some things that help me that might help you. And look where you are today, Justin. Sometimes we get so caught up in our busyness that we forget, look what you've done since your illness.
I appreciate that. And it really is. And you're right. I get calls sometimes from people, especially people I met at the 2019 Ostomy convention. And they'll call and they'll ask me questions and they'll say, I know you work out. Can you work me out? Can we get to the gym together? And I love being able to do that. That's something that's, like you said, Rolf, it's a gift. It really is a gift. And it makes, like you said, what happened to you more palatable, where I don't think I would ever choose this, but now that I have it, I'll take the good that came from it as well. So
let me kind of share my perspective. So I'm much older than you. In fact, it's my birthday today.
That's right.
Today.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Well, thank you. But what a birthday does, like what COVID has done, it gives you an opportunity to reflect. So I had my surgery in 1979. So a lot of water under the bridge in all those many years. But you get to reflect back on your life. And sometimes, I think about we live our life sort of below. If this is a tapestry of our life, we live our lives below the tapestry where all the knots are, right? And every now and then we get a glimpse of looking back at our life and all the things that made it come together. And particularly with an illness, you look back and you would have sold your soul, the Faustian deal, to get rid of the pain and the suffering and the humiliation and the frustration that it caused you, the interruption of a career, whatever. Thank goodness we can't make that deal, because looking back now, you see at the top how this amazing tapestry of your life has woven that really difficult part together. Even the fact that we're on this call together, Justin, and then all of the years prior to this, all the things we've had a chance to do together, the chance to see how that chance encounter encouraged you to do Checkmates, and the fundraising for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and the way you parent your kids, and the way you're available when anybody calls about anything. That has returned so much more to us than we ever could have imagined. And so now, glimpsing back at our lives, I will tell you, yes, I wouldn't have wished it on anybody, and I certainly would have not wished it on myself. But since it happened, I wouldn't trade it for how it changed me and the life it gave me, the purpose it gave me. When you say we do this for others, the truth is we get so much back to know that we've had a small part in helping them on their journey. And it's just amazing, really.
Absolutely. So Rolf, tell us a little bit about the website that you're building. I know you started out with an app, and I think you transitioned over to a website. Tell us how that's going and what's going on with it.
Yeah. So this is my entrepreneurial side. I know this is about entrepreneurs. So, 13 years ago, I really felt called to start a business about how to engage the patient voice in healthcare. So much of healthcare is built around what we call KOLs, key opinion leaders, and they're generally physicians, and they're really important. But what I learned was that the voice of the patient was becoming increasingly powerful. So I built a company called Legacy Health Strategies that sits between what patients want and industry needs. So this bridge, we serve as the go-between. So patients, by and large, sadly, don't necessarily trust big pharma or med device. Now, we need them, but we don't necessarily trust them. And it's sad to me, but a few bad actors in the pharma world paint all of their compatriots to be all about, price and not about patients, all about money, not about it. And that's just not the case. Those of us that have gotten engaged with them realize the R&D, they fail and fail and fail, and then they finally come up with. And so that's not the truth, but that's the misperception. So trust is lacking in the industry. So we built a company that essentially sits between a bridge between what patients want and industry needs. And we've had extraordinary success. Patients are so desirous of helping, but they haven't had access to that. If you think about over the last 10 years, patients have access to information. When we're diagnosed with something, 87% of patients go to Dr. Google or WebMD the minute they get home from the doctor's office, and they scan and they learn, just like you did, as much as they can. Now, some of what they get is not good information, but they're very involved now in their healthcare. The second big change is now we have this ability to engage socially through social media with other people that have our condition. So all of these Facebook groups and bloggers, influencers who are passionate about their disease are found by social media people. And all of a sudden, there's a willingness and a desire and ability to engage and learn what therapies work, what doctors are good, where should I go for the hospital? So this increasingly powerful patient voice starts to have more and more impact in this whole healthcare ecosystem. Congress responds to their constituents, who are we as patients, and we start saying, here's what's important to us. The FDA responds to Congress. Congress tells the FDA has to speak to the medical device and pharma. They have to respond to the FDA. So this ecosystem is now turning to where patients have an increasingly important role. If you think about how advocacy started, it was back in the AIDS days. When people were dying of AIDS, nobody listened well. We were sort of judging lifestyle until the AIDS activists said, you don't understand. People are dying. You have to do something. And the activists created all of this research. And today we're doing an amazing job with AIDS. But that activist has sort of moved to where instead of in your face, come on, it's more these patients go, look, you guys have done amazing work, but we're here to help, include us. But the industry hasn't allowed that. So that's changing. And so one of the things that we're doing as a company, and particularly around ostomy surgery, which is obviously what you and I share, is this is a very difficult to talk about condition. Inflammatory bowel disease. Jackie, you'd agree that Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis and diarrhea and bloody diarrhea are not particularly good dinner subject conversations. So we keep them to themselves. We're not very good at that. And yet it affects 3 million people in the US. There are 120,000 ostomy surgeries are done every year. That's over 350 a day. Think about that. But nobody was talking about it. So when I was playing in the NFL, a lot of visibility was sort of around my career. And then when I returned on my comeback, and it was actually quite uncomfortable because I was single. It's not a great calling card to say, I'm wearing an ostomy bag. And but without intending to. So that first year back, we would play in Kansas City, Denver, Dallas, wherever. The local sports writer would often come out and he would write an article about this comeback this NFL player made. And wherever those articles appeared, patients would read them and they would read between the lines. I didn't often talk about my ostomy in the beginning. And quite literally, I would come back the next week to the locker room and there'd be 50 letters. It was actually kind of funny. They were all, Rolf Benirschke, always misspelled. Who can spell Benirschke? I mean, for crying out loud. Simply San Diego Chargers, San Diego, California. And I'd open the letter up and the letters would all be the same. Dear Rolf, how can you play football with an ostomy? I'm trying to, it was like a fill in the blank, go to school, go to work, be a dad. And I realized that there was an amazing opportunity. So I tried to write everybody back, but pretty soon it's hundreds of letters. And I couldn't do that. So I went to the manufacturer of my product and said, we got to do something. And I essentially created a program to find other stories. I reasoned that I can't be the only one that got his life back. Mine's pretty extreme. Let's find other stories. And so, Justin, you know this, Jackie, I don't know, you don't. We started to find stories that absolutely blew up this restrictive lifestyle box that we all thought we'd have to live in as ostomy wearers, right? Can't travel, can't swim, can't have a family. None of that. I mean, we started to find stories that like, oh my gosh, triathletes, Air Force pilots, police officers, firefighters returned to the force after. We found President Bush's brother. Tip O'Neill had an ostomy. We found a guy that climbed literally the 7 summits. That's the tallest mountain on every continent with an ostomy, including Everest. Justin, I don't know if you know that the latest story we wrote just a little while ago. We wrote a story about a guy who ran 7 marathons in 7 consecutive days on 7 different continents with an ostomy.
That would be incredible without an ostomy.
Without him, right? Exactly.
So,
is that science fiction?
No, it's a true story. There's actually a group. They hire a private plane. You got to raise $30,000, and they organize it all. You start in South Africa, then you go to the Antarctic, and then you go from there. So the point is, incredible. You can literally do anything with an ostomy, but nobody had talked about it. And so even here today, to hear your story, Justin, of all that you're doing, is another example. And with that light, right, that people can do that, they go, well, maybe I can return to my life and whatever that life is. And in fact, they can. So it's really remarkable to look back on it all over the last 40 years.
Rolf, that is an incredible story and just brings up so many memories for me. But a question I have for you, and I'm just thinking of it as having had ulcerative colitis since 1991. You have it, you're going to have to run to the bathroom. You're in a meeting, you're dressed in nights, you're on the field. Everybody's watching you. How do you mentally, before you had this surgery, how do you keep it together? Because the mind starts to play tricks on you. And then you hear that voice, I hope I'm going to make it. I hope I'm going to make it. So everybody's watching you. How did you keep it together?
Well, you're asking a very sensitive question now. So you learn to manage, and I'm sure you've been the same. You've learned to manage your diet when you eat. So most people have a big pregame meal, and usually it's around, 9 o'clock, and the game is at 1. Well, I didn't eat much. So I would go on the field, not very well nutritionalized. After the game, I'd be very hungry. You actually asked an interesting question to me. I'll share with you. There's a gal in Philadelphia who has become a very special friend. I met very much like I met Justin, who had Crohn's disease for 30 years, Jackie, but she learned how to manage it. She became a 5th grade teacher. So when she had the urgency to go and she had it and she's got to go now, she goes, all right, class, 10 minutes of independent study. And she'd quick zip out the back door, use the restroom, come back. Okay. And nobody was the wiser. And then she got dysplasia, just like Justin, and she needed a colon out. And her worst fear was now being realized. And I got connected to her, and we sort of walked through this. And in the process, I got so angry hearing her story, because what she had done was basically allow the disease to control her life. She put her life on hold. She lived basically within 5 square miles. She only did 1 trip following her kids who went and played sports because she didn't want to go on a plane. She was worried about accidents. She didn't go to games. She didn't go to dinner. She didn't go to concerts. She learned how to manage the disease. The disease was managing her. Short story, she has the ostomy, and all of a sudden she goes, oh my gosh, I can do everything. She finished up school. She retired, and she's living her life now. She's traveling, concerts, sports, games, dinners. And hearing that just makes me mad that the fear of this surgery robs people of their lives. Now, Justin said it early. This is not an option that we desire. But at some point, what I've heard from hundreds of patients is your life gets compromised. And finally you go, you know what? I'm done. My life, I'm in pain all the time. I can't go out. I have accidents. I'm done. All right, give me the surgery. And the surgery is always the option of last resort. But if I've heard it once, I've heard it 500 times. I wish I had known life would be like this after an ostomy, and I'd have done this 5 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, that's
Absolutely.
hard. It's hard to volitionally say, yes, cut me open and give me an appliance. But have you not heard that too, Justin?
I have, and I feel it. I feel it. And my gastroenterologist said, there are ways that you're going to have a better life that you can't even imagine right now. And I think to myself, I could drive 5 hours without stopping the car. I couldn't drive a half an hour without stopping the car 3 or 4 times. So it changed that. I mean, and what I do for a living, I teach in front of a class of people. And I did have an accident in front of, I was at a huge pharmaceutical company and soiled my clothes and had to run out and buy new clothes. And they said, do you want to try it on? I was like, nope, that's okay. I'll just take them. I'm sure they'll fit. Threw the clothes on, went back to the class, did the class. But I don't have to think about that anymore. And that's a huge weight off your shoulders.
You guys are making me jealous over here because I'm still living my life being controlled by the disease. So I think this is really important that you get that out there. Something else, I run a support group, and there are many people who are entrepreneurs. They are business people, and they live in complete fear that their employer will find out and that they will lose their job. And this is a real issue. So I hope that by the end of this, we can actually talk to the people out there who are in those situations and give them some hope.
You know, there's so many issues that you, as you say, that remind me. So we created something called Angie's Law, which it was in Texas. There was a poor student with Crohn's disease, and she had to go to the bathroom all the time, and was constantly raising her hand and asking them. And the teachers would, you know, that was the second time in an hour. What do you mean you got to go again? And what are you doing back there? And poor kid was embarrassed. And finally, a bunch of patients got together and said, you don't understand. This is a real condition. Do you want to have an accident right there in the 5th grade so everybody can laugh at her? So they passed a law, and it became actually a national law. I think it's called Angie's Law, where you have to have access to the bathroom anytime. And it's primarily for IBD patients. And so, you know, the cool thing is when you start to really open up, you realize you're actually not alone in this. There are a lot of people that are going through this, and we get encouraged by hearing from other people, even as we hope that you are, Jacalyn, where we remember those days. I mean, for me, it was painful. So originally they thought I had Crohn's disease, and maybe that I had ulcerative colitis. What we've learned now, in fact, there's a biotech company here in San Diego, Prometheus Biosciences, that has recognized that Crohn's disease and colitis are not just the 2 inflammatory bowel diseases. There are subsets of each. There are multiple kinds of Crohn's disease. Just like we're learning, we know now there are multiple kinds of breast cancer. But we have the ability now through precision medicine to identify that. But it's still sort of called Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. Well, Crohn's colitis, we don't know. So I was one of those where when I was going through it, 15 to 20% of us couldn't really be clearly diagnosed. All I know is when my colon and rectum were out, I was free of the disease, and have lived that way since 1979.
Rolf, on the business side of things, how has the pandemic changed your business model? Has it changed it? In my case, I've actually done better since the pandemic. I think more people need computer training, and I think that's what boosted my business dramatically. But for you, has it been, not that I want to say helpful, because I wouldn't want to wish this on us at all, but has it helped? Has it made it harder? What's going on there?
So actually a great question. And I can actually relate it back to our illness, right? So we talked at the beginning of the show about grittiness, grit. I mean, I think there are a lot of people that are super talented. If you look at sports for a minute, you can say, if you put a bunch of players on a team that are all pro, you go, oh, they'd win, right? They're all pro. Actually, that's not the way it works. There still has to be team unity, togetherness. There's got to be grit, all that sort of thing. The teams that win are made up of talented people, but one of the characteristics that is very prevalent with most of them is they have grit. So I think COVID exposed the need to change the way we looked at things. And some companies folded. The world changed around them. They were unwilling to change. And some had to look in the mirror and say, all right, it's changed, like you. How do we do this? We had to do the same. So one of the things we offer is an online teaching module. So we do a lot of patient engagement training. We work with what are called hub service providers, call centers, people that engage with patients as they get on a therapy. We train nurse navigators. We used to do all that live. Now, like you, we had to go completely virtual, find a platform, and now we do that. And all of a sudden our business is expanding because there are a lot of people that need that kind of training. It's not going back to the way it was. It clearly isn't. But we had to divide. We had to have a live version. We had to have an asynchronous version where you can do training on your own time. And let's say on a Friday, you can get all those trained learners together. You have a moderator, could be somebody internally in the company, could be one of our staff that does it. So that's the other one. And then the third model was all virtual with tests and stuff at the end where you get certified and everything. So that was one side of the business. The other side of the business that was really enhanced by us, by this circumstance was, the idea of patient engagement for the longest time was sort of pushing a boulder up the hill.
Right.
Companies, it's a nice to have, but it doesn't really move the needle. There are more important things. Well, COVID changed all that. COVID is what we call an accelerator. Let's use a specific example. So clinical trials, let's use inflammatory bowel disease. There are a lot of clinical trials done around new therapies for Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis. All of the trials are designed around a site. They're site specific. The companies will go out and they might find 80 sites in the US. They'll pay a principal investigator and he'll put the word out that they're doing a clinical trial for a new drug for Crohn's disease. The model is incredibly inefficient. Each site on average provides 1 to 1.2 patients per trial. So think about this. If you need 80 or 200 patients, that's a long time and it's an expensive proposition. And it requires the patient go to the site. So let's use you for an example, Justin, and I'll use my geography here in San Diego. If the site is at UC San Diego, but you live in Temecula, which on a good day is an hour and a half drive, but on a bad day could be 3 hours because of traffic. But you got to go there every week for, let's say, 8 weeks because you need to get an infusion. You're going, whoa, wait a minute. I might have 3 accidents by the time I get here to there. At minimum, I need to know where every bathroom is. So finally you go, you know what? I'm not doing this. The burden on you as a patient is too high, and so you don't roll in the site.
Right.
What happened with COVID was people didn't want to go to the sites for a different reason. They didn't want to get COVID. So either the trial was aborted or the trial had to pivot and say, well, wait a minute, Justin, what about if we sent a nurse to you and did the infusion in your house for 6 of those 8 weeks? And the only times you needed to come in here were to do the 2 colonoscopies we need to do, or the 1 colonoscopy to read if it's working. Would you be more likely to get involved in a trial like that? And of course, the answer is yes. So how do you unburden the patient? And so in our world, that's happening dramatically. Again, driven by the healthcare consumer, right? The patient advocate who says, wait a minute, I'm not going on a trial if I got to do all that. But I'd love to be on a trial, but make it easier for me.
Right.
So we're involved in that space. We're also involved in bringing patients into even the early design of the trials. We're helping design the endpoints of trials. We're helping the FDA, who wants patient-reported information, to label drugs and keep them from just being Me Too drugs. All of that. So when you bring patients to the R&D people who are generally not close to patients, it informs them and they walk away with a completely different understanding. So those are just some of the examples. So I think this world of patient engagement is changing a lot. We have to demonstrate metrics that are meaningful to the whole stakeholder group. So if you think about it, when a drug is created, there are lots of stakeholders, right? There's patients, but there's also hospital systems. There are also physicians. There are also the payers, right? The insurance companies. There's also the FDA. So all these different stakeholders have different needs. And so what you have to be able to demonstrate when you bring a drug to market is value. What's the value? If you think of the organizing principle, so many companies, the organizing principle is on outputs. I'm just going to create something. Well, that's not enough anymore. It has to be now outcomes. How did that really change everything? It's not enough just to do it. You got to demonstrate a change. So payers are looking for outcomes. What's a payer outcome? So one might be, I'm reducing hospital stay from 6 days to 2. That's a meaningful outcome. Patients are going, well, that's a great outcome for me. I'd rather not spend 6 days in the hospital. I'd rather spend 2. So as you bring product to market, you have to create value and outcomes that matter to the different stakeholders. And to me, that's a good thing. And that's where things have changed a lot.
That's incredible how quickly that changes too, right? We're talking 2019. Everything was normal. By the time we hit 2020, it's a completely different world.
Well, just in your world too, right? It's not just enough to train people. You got to make sure they change their behavior. You got to measure the outcome of that training. Otherwise, you're just no different from anybody else.
And it's funny you say that, Rolf, because I do offer that to my clients, and a lot of times they don't take me up on it, which is unfortunate because I like to tell them you want to see if you're getting return on investment. Are you training people? Is going in one ear and out the other, or are they working differently? Are they more efficient? So I'm trying to build that up, that companies take me up on those offers.
You got to be able to demonstrate that. So you got to create your own surveys that show here's where they were before and here's where they are after in all the different areas that are important to the company. So here's I'm speaking too much, but you actually got me excited. So I think there are 4 questions every one of the companies you work with has of you. And I'm going to suggest they're the same 4 questions we have as patients of our doctors, for example, but they're actually never articulated. Here's the first question I have of my doctor. Can I trust you?
That's huge.
Your clients are asking you, can I trust you? But they're not asking there. They're just thinking. So first, can I trust you? The second is, are you the best? Should I have you be the doctor that cuts me open? Should you be the training company that I hire? So are you the best? We got to demonstrate excellence, commitment to excellence. The third question is, do you really understand who I am? Do you know what's important to me? Your customer is saying, do you know what's important to me, Justin? The doctors I'm asking the doctor, do you know what's important to me? I'm a single mother with 2 kids with 2 jobs. Do you understand that? Do you understand I'm a professional football player? 24 years old, I want to play again. Do you understand? So that means you got to listen, take time to really understand. And then the last question, and maybe the most important, is there hope? Is there hope that if I choose you as a surgeon to do this for me, that I'm going to be able to have the life that I want? Your employer is going, if I hire you, Justin, are you going to is there hope that you can actually do what I'm hiring you to do and change my workers or my clients or my employees' ability to know the internet better? So it's sort of like, sports. So let's just say I'm a 10-year veteran, all pro, and we have a new coach comes in. We're all sitting back there. All right, what are you going to tell us, big boy? So he's got to do the same thing. He's got to earn our trust. He's got to demonstrate commitment to excellence. He's got to get to know me. Doesn't treat me the same way he treats a rookie. And then my last question is there hope that if we follow you, that we're going to get to the promised land? Happens to be the Super Bowl this week. Can we get there? And I've watched coaches do it so well and some that just don't get it at all. So it's sort of a leadership principle, I think, that we would all do well to heed.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said listening. I think that's that's what's lacking, I think, in today's world, is people are more inclined to say, this is what I want, this is what I need, this is what I would like to have happen, instead of listening to other people and saying, okay, what do you need?
You couldn't have hit it better. It's true. So if we've all had lots of doctors with appointments with doctors, they actually did a survey. They said the closer you are to a specialist, you interrupt quicker. So if you're a GP, you listen for about 20 seconds. But if you're a surgeon, you interrupt after 9 seconds. So they actually did the study. They taped patients with their doctors. And here's what they found. if the doctor would just listen to the patient tell his story, why are you here? Just open question, open-ended question. Why are you here? The patient over 3.5 minutes will tell his story. And if the physician could just say, okay, what else? Well, I had this sort of pain in my shoulder. Really? Okay, interesting. What else? Well, actually, I'm not sleeping very well. And oh, that's interesting. Anything else? Well, the truth is, I'm not seeing very well. Oh, really? Well, if your wife was here, what would she say? I have to know. And in the process of the 3.5 minutes of asking those open-ended questions, the physician gets a really good snapshot of what's important to you, what the situation actually is more qualified to give you advice, and the patient walks away feeling heard. It takes on the average 3.5 minutes, but we don't do that. We interrupt. The first thing we say, or they say, oh, we got a solution for this. Here's what we need to do. We need to do this, and then the patient walks away going, he didn't really hear my situation at all.
Yeah.
So to ask and listen is a hard thing sometimes.
I'm laughing over here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say my surgeon, that's exactly what he did. Dr. Michael Harris in Englewood, New Jersey. He sat with my wife and I for 1 hour and 45 minutes and asked questions about what we do. You're a father. What do you like to do? What are your activities that you do? And that's when he told me your story. So he really did take the time to do that. And I found that very, unfortunately, it's not as common as it should be.
We've sort of unfortunately mandated that out of the system, right? We've added the requirement these physicians see more and more patients. Again, on the average 12 minutes, the GP gets 12 minutes with a patient. There's 10 guys in the waiting room when he gets. So, but it's a good thing to learn, and the best ones still do it. They find a way to do it.
And what's funny is it was before I was even his patient. He said at the end of this 1 hour and 45-minute session, he said, if you decide that you want me to be your surgeon, just give me a call and let me know. So he took all that time, and I could have very well said, well, it's far from home. It would be better if I just did something closer to home. That's an amazing person. I really, really was lucky.
So there's an equation, a trust equation that I think is part of what you just talked about. So remember, we talked a minute ago about trust is the thing that we are trying to find, right? Can I trust you? This distrust patients have of industry. So if you think of trust as an equation, right? Trust equals rapport, which is the ability to engage like this, listen and ask questions, plus reputation. Might be a really good surgeon reputation, might be indifferent, maybe you don't even know, plus reliability. Do you actually do the things you say you're going to do, right? So reputation, reliability, rapport, all of which are really important, but not as important as the denominator of the question. The denominator of the question is self-interest. So if the patient feels like this is all about you need to do another surgery, you need to sell another product, you need it, whatever, your trust score goes way down.
Sure.
What that surgeon was doing, he was sort of nixing self. It wasn't about himself. It was all about you. How could he serve you and take care of you? And that's often hard to do. But if we understand that's what's going on in the minds of patients, players, employees, self-interest, we have to nix our self-interest. That's where trust gets at least started.
I can't agree more.
Such amazing points, Rolf. I actually teach listening courses. And the funny thing is that what I find as I'm observing people in the course is they're not listening. People seem to think that they can be on their devices doing things and they're still listening to you, or people are listening, waiting for the second that you stop talking so they can jump in with their story, right? Or they have the solution for you. You didn't ask for a solution, but yet they have one. So I think that's so important, especially in the medical world. The story you just told, you'll always remember how you felt in that experience. And when you have an interaction with someone and they're not listening, you know it. It doesn't feel good. And you remember.
Right.
So Jacalyn, have you heard of Brene Brown? So Brene Brown talks about the difference between sympathy and empathy, right? So sympathy is, ooh, that's bad. I'm really sorry. You want to go to lunch? Empathy is climbing in the pit saying, you know what, this sucks. And I don't have anything to tell you. There's nothing I can do. But we're going to go through this thing together, whatever it is. That's empathy. And that's also listening. And when you find those kinds of people, Justin, you're one of those kind of people, it changes everything. It really does.
I appreciate that.
And it's probably easiest found in people that have gone through something as humbling and challenging as what we've gone through. There's no magic word. There's no Bible verse. There's no God's got a plan. All of that I think is true, but that's not what you want to hear when you're lying there filleted open, looking at your life going, this sucks.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And there is an opportunity still.
I love that. Focus on the opportunity. And Rolf, the other thing I think you said is so important. And Justin, I know you feel like this as well. You wouldn't be who you are if you didn't go through that. And I know that about me, that humiliation, those accidents in the public, in a restaurant, that makes you stronger. And then you don't look at yourself so much anymore. It's like you come through it. It's like, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Tell me your story. I'm here for you.
So I'll elaborate on that because I agree to a point. And here's
here's
where I would say, so we can do all the educating and all the encouraging and all the inspiring. At the end of the day, it's up to the person or the patient. They can still choose bitter. This sucks. Why is this happening to me? It's not fair. I'm only 24. My career's in front of me. Not fair. You could say that. Jacalyn, I'm a beautiful girl. This should never happen. Why am I embarrassing myself? This is awful. Yes, at some point you have to understand this has happened. So the question becomes not why me, but what now? Where do I go from here? And that question can only be answered by the patient. Only. There are some people where a trauma like this or others can bury the patient, lead to drugs, alcohol, divorce, just poor me, why me, I'm the victim, it's awful. Yeah, it's true. It is. Or it can change them. It's totally up to the patient. Now, a lot of us choose why me for a while. And frankly, I did. I was angry. I was scared. I was embarrassed. This isn't fair. And it wasn't. Why me? No answer for that except poor me. It leads back to poor me and nobody frankly cares. It wasn't until I finally had to say this happened and now I got to deal with it that I started opening up the possibilities of what now, where do I go from here? Never, ever imagining that I would play football. Never in my wildest dreams. And now I'm married to an unbelievable wife. Unbelievable. You talk about kicking your coverage. I outkick my coverage. And 4 amazing kids. Could never have imagined that. So this is the point. This is the gritty point that we all come to. And it's, it's not just health. It's lots of things in life. It's the things life throws at you. Life is sort of inherently unfair, but you get a choice to be the victim or you get to move on. And you can visit the poorhouse, just don't move in. Visit and then leave.
That's a great point, because I think a lot of people think that people like you and me and others who talk about the hope think that we're always up every day. Every day we choose to be strong. I have days where I fall apart, but you don't live there. You don't stay at that house.
You can't live there.
No, you can't. Can't.
Yeah.
It's very true. Right now, I'm suffering with an eczema flare. It's pretty bad. And I went out for a walk and I was like, I'm so sick of this. What? And then I thought, okay, that's it. Get back to business. Enough of the pity party. 10 minutes. That's all you got. But I want people to know out there that there are support groups, right? Like the Crohn's colitis, we have a wonderful support group. So if you are feeling like you're going the other way, you don't have to go that way. There are people who are there for you to hear what you have to say and hopefully help you make the turn.
I read a book turned on actually to me by an unbelievable grateful patient. So I would argue I'm the most grateful patient there is because I survived my illness and my surgery. And then I found out I got hepatitis C from all the blood transfusions I have. And I had to go on clinical trials, and they worked. The third one finally worked, and I'm free of my disease. I mean, I'm just so grateful. I met another grateful patron who would maybe argue with me that he's more grateful than me, but he had has a disease called polycystic kidney disease, which is a disease that is very genetic. It has to do with cysts that grow on your kidneys. The kidneys grow the size of a football. They bleed. You need dialysis and then kidney transplant. And there's death all around these people. I mean, it's just horrible. And a company came up with the first treatment to slow the progression down. And he went on that treatment. And, his downside is he has to urinate a lot. The upside is he's not needing a transplant. He does not need to go to dialysis and all these other things. So he shares a book with me. This is an interesting book called Upside, The New Science Behind Post-Traumatic Growth. And these scientists got together and they interviewed 200 or 250 people that have had some of life's most challenging circumstances thrown at them. I mean, things you go, oh my gosh. I mean, loss of a limb, total paralysis, a wheelchair the rest of your life, suicide of a child, a horrific divorce. I mean, all these things you just, and he interviewed them. And there's the trauma of the experience, just bury these poor people. And you can hardly blame them. I mean, if you're a vibrant athlete and suddenly now you're paralyzed, I mean, but a huge percentage went the other way. And it wasn't many years where they got to where Justin and I are, which is we wouldn't trade what happened to us for how it changed us. Now I'm talking, the most horrific things. And in the process, they started to ask, why? What was it that made the barometer flip this way where they get to be grateful? And there's not a magic bullet. It's a series of things. One was community that comes around you. Faith was part of it for some. Hope was some provided by others. Some was the recognition of this new purpose in life they didn't have. They were sort of wandering around aimlessly trying to figure out what they were supposed to do. Very talented, but didn't have a direction. And now they had a direction. So it was a very inspiring book to know that almost no matter what happens to you, there can be this amazing outcome if you're willing to wrestle through it.
Not easy to do, but absolutely that's the choice you have to make if you want to go forward.
Justin, I think about you, what made you sort of follow through and do Checkmates and get involved with the CCF and all that?
I think it was mainly because I had two daughters who I knew had a higher likelihood of getting Crohn's disease or colitis. And that was probably the main thing. But the other thing was I felt like I was robbed of a lot of my prime years. And I thought, you know what, there's only one way to fight back, and that's to defeat the disease. I remember after surgery, my father was filming me. I asked him to film me in the bed after I was wheeled into my room. And the last thing I said on the film was, ulcerative colitis, I'm coming for you. And when my dad turned off the camera, he said, Justin, you don't have ulcerative colitis anymore. And I turned to him and I said, but a lot of other people do, Dad. I said, so we're going to beat this thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was, I'll never forget that moment. That was pretty neat.
Wow. Look what you've done as a result of that. It really is. It's humbling. I mean, you get to discover. So the last thing I would say, and maybe you feel the same way, Justin, is in the process of this, we get to discover parts of ourselves we didn't know actually existed, that we have greater courage, greater ability to cope. We have greater creativity to come out, figure it all out than we ever thought we had.
Right.
It's not that we didn't have those qualities before, but they were sort of forced into the light. We had to discover that about ourselves. And in the process, maybe that's how we become changed, right? All of a sudden we have greater self-confidence, greater, passion about something. And that's a blessing.
It is. I actually had to work 45 minutes after I found out that I had the high grade dysplasia. I had to teach a class. So I get this news, and I'm crying my eyes out, and I'm calling my mother, and I couldn't get in touch with my wife, and I'm panicking, and then 45 minutes later, I'm teaching a class, and as if nothing happened. And it was almost like I had an out of body experience. But you're right. I can't even, looking back on that, I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the coolest thing. And I recently read an article about, what would you like to have on your team if you were to make up a team? And the article is basically talking about, you obviously need talent,
right?
But talent it's not the school you went to, the GPA you got, the SAT scores, the great college. Those aren't necessarily predictors of great outcomes when it comes to hiring people or finding teammates. Right. One of the predominant ones is grit, however you define grit. And those of us that have had to deal with a tough illness like this have been forced to find a grit that maybe we didn't know we had. Right. And I know you've been around teams. There are buddies that you play hockey with that are willing to go into every corner, go chase down every puck, know that they're going to get knocked around, and they're still doing it.
Right.
And you can't win without those guys.
Those are the key guys.
They make the game very exciting too.
They do. They do.
And Justin, I just want everyone to know that you do such incredible work for the Crohn's Colitis Foundation also. It's just a thank you so much for your support.
I appreciate that. It's a labor of love for me. So it's as Rolf said, you get it back. So it's not just giving, it's receiving too.
Definitely. We got to spin next to each other, close to each other.
That's right. That's right.
That was fun.
Rolf, she can outspin me every day of the week.
Oh, that. Yeah. I got a wife like that too. I don't even go there anymore.
Well, it's just, as you said, when you have had years and years of your life that has been impacted by disease, you don't waste time, right? You take whatever you have and you just give it your all.
Absolutely.
I think that's right. You want to fill your life because there's no guaranteed whatever years to it. The other thing I'd say to that, Jackie, is we live so much of our life towards a destination of whatever that destination is, right? I'm going to buy my first house. I'm going to get married. I'm going to have kids. And you quickly go through each one of those destinations. I mean, the destination, whatever that is, ultimately gets pushed back. I'm going to sell my company. I'm whatever. So I think that's the wrong way to live. And for me, it was always the journey. After my illness, it was the journey and not the destination. That was what was rewarding. And then I've actually amended that over the last few years. It's not just the journey. It's who you get to do it with. It's who you get to share this life with. And it's your friends. It's I look at our disease, Justin, how many people has that brought us close to? Even this little discussion. Yeah. It was brought about by our disease and your willingness to reach out. And all of a sudden we have this really neat friendship that's rewarding, and it makes our life journey that much more interesting. And that's a huge benefit to discover early.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been an absolute gift having both of you here today. Thank you so much. Rolf, I want to spotlight you for the people who are listening on Business Talk Radio and the people who are watching, whether they're watching on the live or they're watching on the replay. Who would you like to reach out to you, and how would you like them to contact you?
Oh, you're kind. Well, certainly if you are facing ostomy surgery or have inflammatory bowel disease, I've written several books. I wrote my autobiography, Alive and Kicking. Happy to send you a copy. I wrote 2 books around ostomy surgery. We're launching this new program that actually didn't finish the discussion on, Justin, which was to work with companies that provide a support for patients going through ostomy surgery. It's basically 3 months of feedback from me, daily video message to them, game plan for the day, resources that they can go to. tips from other patients, yourself included, Justin, and from nurses and doctors who take care of us. So it's a basically hold your hand through this journey of transition if you're facing ostomy surgery. But you can go to rolfbenirschke.com if you can spell it. I see my email is there. You can reach out to me directly. I'm happy to encourage you. If you have a friend that's got the disease and needs a little encouragement, I'm happy to do that. But really, Jackie, Justin, I appreciate just what you're doing, getting the word out. There is a foundation, the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, or United Ostomy Associations of America, UOAA, that helps with ostomy patients.
Right.
But I think the more we shine the light on these diseases and the surgery, the better for patients. And it demystifies, what is potentially an overwhelming diagnosis or need for surgery. And we just know that's not the case. It's not the end of your life at all. It's, in many cases for us, it's a second chance at life and a very fulfilling life.
Well said.
Thank you so much. I just want to add that it's been so nice having you both here and watching this beautiful friendship that you have and how you support each other. I think that's really outstanding.
There's not another person on earth that I wanted on my first show as my first guest, Rolf. So,
well, you're kind, my treat. It's good to see you guys. Okay.
Same here. Hope to see you in Philly sometime.
Soon enough, I'll be back there. Yeah, we have a conference coming up. Patients as Partners is going to be there in April, so you're going to get a call. Yeah.
Please do.
Okay.
It'd be great to see you.
All right, guys.
Thanks
Take
again,
care,
Rolf.
Rolf.
Nice meeting you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, he was outstanding, really. Wonderful
He's an amazing
man.
person.
So down to earth as well.
He really is. I mean, think about not only in the NFL, but he hosted the daytime Wheel of Fortune. Pat Sajak was doing the Pat Sajak show, and they needed a host for the daytime Wheel of Fortune, and Rolf was on there. So he's so accomplished, and yet he'll take a call from anybody who is in need, especially those, of course, who are facing ostomy surgery.
You know what? I kind of feel like that goes hand in hand. He's not here to ask him, but I feel like the more open you are to helping other people, the more successful, the more, and by the way, success looks different, right? There's a lot of different ways to be successful, but
Right.
the fact that he really does care about other people, that he puts himself out there like that, like even with the email address, he was fine with that. Yeah, email me.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for bringing him to the program. And Justin, I'm going to spotlight you. If you could let our audience know when it is that we're doing the show, and you have your own guests lined up. And if you can just talk a little bit about what people can expect to be on the show. It's by invitation only from Justin. So Justin, just share a little bit about what people can expect in the next shows.
Sure. So what we're doing is we're going to do every Monday, Entrepreneur and So Much More. I'm sorry, not every Monday. The first Monday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern. So we may ramp that up to twice a month, but we're going to see time permitting. With my career that I'm on, it's kind of difficult. But so yes, once a month, every first Monday at 5 p.m. And the guests that we're going to have. I have an accomplished lawyer who actually graduated law school with my father, who I'm hoping to have on the show. Some folks who have been in sports around the Philadelphia area. I have a lot of contacts with those people who have not only worked in sports and been athletes, but actually have started other businesses as well. So we're going to have a lot of people like that. Hopefully a lot of high profile people. Hope to reach out to Jay Snyder, former owner of the Flyers, who is a friend of mine, and he's out in California now. So a lot of really insightful people that are not just going to be here to talk about their exploits and what they've done, but to help you, the viewer, become as successful as they are, or at least get to a place where you feel happy in your career. So that's the most important thing to me.
I'm looking forward to that. And Justin, can you also tell everyone about Checkmates?
Yeah, so I started Checkmates Charitable Association back in 2014, and we help folks who are in the ostomy community and also in the inflammatory bowel community. What we do, and unfortunately COVID has kind of stepped in the way right now, we have NHL celebrity hockey games that we have once a year to raise money. That's our signature event. So we're hoping to get back into that probably in either in the fall of 22 or the spring of 23. But anybody who wants to make a donation to Checkmates, you can go to www.checkmatescharity.com and you can make a donation there. We have nobody who gets a salary. It's all goes to the charities. We support the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, the United Ostomy Association. We try to help kids get to a special camp for kids with inflammatory bowel disease. So there's a cost for that for kids to get there. It's a very specialized camp. I believe it's called Camp Oasis. And the money that we send to the Crohn's Colitis Foundation is earmarked to help those kids have a nice week at camp and maybe forget about the disease for a little while.
That's exceptional. I've actually been to the camp and it's
Have
really
you?
wonderful. Yes, I went up to the camp. I went with Dawn and Lucille from the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, and it really opened my eyes. The kids are so happy, having such a nice time. Everybody's at ease, understanding that they all have a common issue to be there.
Exactly. And again, it's take them away from that disease for a little bit. Just be kids.
Yes, that's what we want.
That's the beauty of it.
That's what we want. Justin, it's been such an honor being here with you. I'm so excited. Rolf was a great guest. And for people, there's some people just joining us. Please go over to our YouTube channel or our website. You can watch the show in its entirety. Both are the same name. Guess what it is? USA Global TV. So the website is usaglobaltv.com and the YouTube channel is USA Global TV. And this show will be organized in the playlist Entrepreneur and so much more. So it's been fantastic being with you.
Jacalyn, I feel the same way. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I look forward to chatting with you again soon.
Sounds great.
Bye.
Bye.
For everyone watching, I just want you to know that you are not alone. And as I mentioned, I do run a support group for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. I'm a co-facilitator. It's a regional group. So if you're anywhere really on the East Coast, you can join our group. It is the last Tuesday of each month from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And it's open for all. If you're a patient or a caregiver or physician, we would love to have you. So all you have to do is email me, and I'll put my email in the chat. It's just Dr. Jacalyn at me.com or Jacalyn at drjacalyn.com. It's confusing. I'll put it in the chat. The other thing is I want to make you aware of the fact that we have 18 shows this week, and we would love to have your support. We have all different topics and wonderful co-hosts just like Justin. So to find out more about our shows, you can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and just go to shows. You can find out everything you need to know about the shows there, and you can also be a guest by booking your session. The last thing I want to mention is that we have a new show starting this week. It's called Adversity to Awesome. It kind of reminds me of what Rolf was just talking about. And it's in alignment with my new book, which is Adversity to Awesome, where similarly, I've interviewed people who have been through horrific things in their life. They've been in prison, they've been sex trafficked, they've lived through homelessness, addiction, and their stories, in their words, are captured in this book. My new book is coming out April the 4th, and you can also be on our show, which starts this Friday. It's every Friday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, and of course, you can find out more about this on our website. There's a quiz. What is the website? It's not Wheel of Fortune, but usaglobaltv.com. All right, enough, folks. Thank you so much for being here. We're wrapping up for today. We'll be back tomorrow with a full day of broadcasting. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rolf, and thanks to all of you who are following us.